Page 35, Goodnight, Ladies. On this page they talk a little bit about chord progressions and chord symbols, music theory. We've already talked about the chord symbols, the Roman numerals for the chord. And the Roman numerals, that's the number of the chord, is in relation to the key you're in. See, I could say a C chord, I could say a G7 chord. Well, those aren't in relation to any keys. Those are always a C chord and a G7 chord. It doesn't matter what key you're in. But when you're using the numbers or the names of the chord, tonic and dominant and that's in relation to the key you're in. And we're talking about here C major, the key of C major. C major just uses the white keys on the piano. There's no sharps or flats. So that's what we're doing. So in the key of C major, we're dealing with the one chord, which is the chord built on the first step of the scale. It's a C chord, or a one chord, or a tonic chord. Now we're dealing with the G7 chord, which is the fifth step of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the 5-7 chord. It's a 5 chord with a 7th added, so it's a 5-7 chord. Now we don't use all the notes, and we go through all that again. Remember, it's here. 5-7 chord is also known as the dominant 7 chord because the fifth step of the scale is the dominant step. That's any key. It's the fifth step is the dominant. So the dominant 7 or 5-7 in the key is of C major, or it's a G7 chord, whatever. The Roman numerals again, an I for 1 for the 1 chord, and a V for the 5 chord, and then you add a little 7. Superscript 7 on there for 5-7. That's what this is about. Those two chords go together. You can go from one to the other. You can progress or move from one chord to the other. It sounds fine. Some chords don't sound so good when you go from one chord to another. These sound good. This is very common to go from a 1 to a 5-7 to a 1. Do that a lot in music. And that's what's kind of talking about here with chord progressions. Chord progression is when you progress or move to a series of chords, 2 or more chords. We did a 1 and then a 5-7 and then a 1. That's a chord progression. All kinds of chord progressions. Don't try and memorize them. It's no, just enjoy them. And you'll see some more often than others, and you'll get to where you kind of expect them after a while. Let's talk Goodnight, ladies. It is 4 lines long, no repeats on anything, just 4 lines long. Treble and bass clef, 4/4 time. We got half notes, quarter notes, dotted half notes, whole notes. We can handle all that, I hope. I see the chords. We got the C chord and the G7 chord in the left hand. Okay. Looks like the melody is, for the most part, in the right hand. All right, let's look it over. First off, one hand at a time. Let's make sure we have the fingering and the notes and all. The fingering isn't bad now because you're not moving around. Hang in there because eventually you will move around. So here in the right hand, you're starting third finger on E here. Now put your hand in C position again. Big surprise. As 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get the idea? You work out the right hand. Just make sure you lift up for the rests. In the left hand, you're starting with thumb on G, first finger here, that puts you in C position, and you get one note in the first line, oh boy, and then in the second line, in the second measure, a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And basically you're getting the chords in the left hand. I want to challenge you. In the second line, going from the next to the last measure to the last measure. This is the last 2 measures of the second line. You're here, going from the F to the C chord. Connect it. Don't lift up. I want you to try and get into the idea where you can play from 1 note to 3 notes and connect them. That's hard to do. And get the notes down at the same time? I don't, but maybe you can. And what I do here, because I use weight to play, I've got weight on the index finger here, and when I'm ready for the chord, I got my fingers in position, I raise the wrist a little, and as I lower the wrist, I lower the weight. I lift the weight a little bit, I'm still holding the finger, and as I lower the weight, I simply switching fingers. So I'm going from this finger to these fingers, and the weight's pushing them down. I'm just moving the fingers. And even though it looks like I'm doing this, ba-dum, ba-dum, even when the wrist is up, the weight is still down. I can have weight regardless of where the wrist is. It's handy when the wrist goes down to change the weight to the finger, change it. Yeah. That's your challenge for today. I'll try putting the hands together here. It's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the idea? Second line. Second measure when they play together, it's the F's together. 1, 2, 3. And then here, then here, and then here. Now in the third line, in the second measure, you're here. Hold that down as you play the chord, and then both hands come up. So for one beat, you got both hands down, and then you can lift both hands to go to the next one. So you do the hands and all that. Get rid of the hesitation, because when you first put the hands together, you're liable to hesitate. You think, which finger am I on, and now which fingers am I using? This one, and now this one, and now this one. You might hesitate all over the place. That's okay, but go back through it a few hundred times and get rid of the hesitations. So it's a steady beat. You get used to the different fingers at the same time. Then we think about the articulation. We're simply going to lift up. Now, a lot of times they give you a rest, but not always. Like the first line, lift up. Just a little lift up. It's like taking a breath. Lift up. Then you get a one beat rest, and in the second line you have to lift up. But on the third line, lift up. Lift up. Just lift up here, and you can lift the left hand at the same time. Like I said, in the second measure, the third line, you're here. Hold it down as you play that, and lift both hands up together. So, like taking a breath. Because the tendency is to lift the right hand up when you play the chord. No. Hold that half note down. So you have both hands down. When you play the chord, you're hearing the note in the right hand also. And then finally the dynamics. I disagree with the dynamics. Let's talk about it. They're helping you out a little too much. I want to keep it more realistic here. At the beginning, you get an MF. That's mezzo forte, means moderately loud or medium loud, sort of loud. And it applies to the melody, because not everything we're playing here is melody. Everything else has to be in the background. So you're starting out moderately loud. It's all melody here, but when you get to the second line, second measure, that's not melody. That needs to be soft. Can you play this moderately loud and this soft at the same time? I simply have more weight on the right hand, and I'm very light in the left. So in the last measure of the second line, I want to hear the melody. That's soft. Now in the third line, second measure, underneath the bottom staff, they have an MP. I disagree. You don't need that. The point is the melody's in the right hand. It's moderately loud. The chord is in the background. It's got to be soft. And so you don't need the MP. Normally you wouldn't get that. You just get the one dynamic and you apply that to the melody and adjust everything else. As far as the speed goes, it's a happy piece. How fast would you sing? It's a very common melody. It's not that fast for me. I depends on how much coffee I've had to drink as to how fast I would take it. It's not super fast, and don't drag it. So it kind of moves, but don't move too fast, huh? Let's play it together very slowly and double check the notes and the rhythms. I'm not going to do any dynamics. I'm going to play both hands about the same. We're going to go really slow. You should be playing the same note I'm playing at the same time. And this is after you've learned it. And you can play it without any hesitations or anything. And again, you should be able to play this piece without looking at the keyboard. Yeah. So I'll give us 4 counts. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4. 2, 3,